thousands of innocent people will die.
Okay, 1 week. Who's the suspect?
Your wife.
Regé, I love how you described that first dinner scene like we're watching a pro tennis match. I couldn't agree more. But for all of you, whose performance that day struck you the most? And then how did Soderbergh's approach to filming it enhance that for you?
I honestly believe that something that was what was so incredible about those dinner table scenes was the fact that you're like working in an ensemble and everyone, you know, you take any little piece of the Jenga out and the whole thing falls down. So it really was just about like letting everyone kind of build this thing together and then sort of playing off of it. And at the helm of that, obviously, you have Stephen, who is literally in the middle of the table, kind of catching everything. I do think that Stephen's kind of if there was going to be one star of that little room, it's probably Stephen, because it's like he's just so in control of everything that's going on, you know?
I think Fandango is a great word, by the way.
I agree. That was a perfect description.
I would say that I loved watching Clarissa and Freddie on that first scene. And I love what you guys were doing there, because it's sort of, you know, that was always like when I read it, you know, the comedy in the piece there, there's so much going on just between the two of them. So for me, in that opening scene, I would have said you guys.
Yeah, I'd probably say you two, because the balance of comedy and pathos, because it's never not really high stakes, and it's still very funny. And then if anyone kind of walks away with this, I think Tom really gets to have fun in this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
He gets away with one of the only improvisations in the entire film.
It's a great line.
Because it's a great line.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the line that he improvised?
Black bag.
Hands down.
Hands down.
That is the most boring thing you've done.
Most fantastic pun that anyone could come out with in that moment.
Yeah.
He was having a ball that day.
Oh my gosh. Well, it definitely translated to the audience. I really enjoyed it. Now, Michael, you're pretty much an expert spy at this point. Like any agency could call you up and you are ready. So what attracts you to this genre the most?
I needed the work, if I'm being very honest. You know, it's a fascinating world, because a small percentage of the world, like really small percentage of the world, will only have a real idea of what it's all about. And I think that's where the fascination is as players or as audience members. We want to sort of get a peek into that world. I think, you know, what sort of maybe attracts people that go into espionage or Secret Service, I guess, is being sort of at the apex of something and knowing what's happening for real in the world, as opposed to the filtered down version that we might get as a public. But it's just, you know, extraordinary characters doing extraordinary or in extraordinary circumstances, you know.
And I know that all three of you actually got to talk to former spies, actual former spies. So Marisa and Regé, what were some fascinating things about them that you learned, that you took with you?
Naomie and I have been talking about this a lot the last couple of days, because she's spoken to Secret Service folks before. I have as well. We've had more contact with Secret Service agents than anyone should in a healthy life. But it's the focus that changes. Like previously, we've spoken about like ex-army service and like the combat aspects and those kind of qualifications. And this movie is far more interested in the human aspect of spy work. It's very much more about getting people to trust you, identifying people's weaknesses, identifying how you manipulate the weaknesses that you can see in other people. So it's all observation and being someone that other people can trust that they shouldn't. And so I think leaning into those psychological aspects and that manipulative aspect is what's unique about this piece.
I found out the spy that I was talking to doing research isn't actually a spy at all.
What?
So all the information they were giving me was just like...
When and how did you find that out?
They were just an accountant. You know.
Really?
Did you?
No.
Cool.
That's so funny. Well, bringing the humanity into the movie, you know, of course, we have George and Catherine's relationship at the heart of it. And Michael, you and Cate, I mean, you're like a silver screen match made in heaven. So what felt the most real to you about George and Catherine's relationship? And then how did Cate's performance enhance that for you or set the tone for you?
Well, first of all, starting there, you know, I was nervous. You know, Cate is such a sort of icon. She's a legend. She's so brilliant at what she does. I was hoping that I'd come and sort of, you know, give her back what she was, you know, going to present to me. And we didn't talk about any of the sort of the relationship with these characters, which I thought was going to be exciting too. It wasn't like, it was just, we didn't really have a lot of time. By the time I think we all jumped on board to when we were on set filming, it was only a matter of months. So, when you're working with somebody of that caliber, I thought it was going to be exciting just to see what she was going to bring in the scene. And then I could sort of, listen, react. And I had obviously my own biography put together. Just really excited to work with her. What was really cool about this story, because, having sort of looked into the, what's it like being a spy, living in this world, the one thing that I really took away from it is that it's so lonely, so isolating. So the idea that these two people had each other, and obviously in their childhoods that they've had a rough time. For whatever reasons, it's mentioned when Catherine's with Dr. Zoe Ball, and then in the first dinner table scene comes up about me and my father. And so loyalty is really fundamental to both of them. And then the question is, are they going to be more loyal to each other or to their country?
Okay, now Regé, Colonel Stokes is a man full of contradictions, and even Soderbergh had to basically ask you if you were okay to play someone who was sort of a jerk. His words, not mine. So what ultimately made you say yes to this role?
It was exactly those contradictions. That's everything that I look for in a role, in a character. It means that there's things for me to get my teeth into. I like, particularly in this world that we are examining, people who have a very strong drive, a strong professional drive, a lot of repression, and the battle between your professional responsibility, your loyalty to your country, to your job, which is the fate of the world, and your own humanity and your need for intimacy, your need for a safe space, your need to connect on a human level. And I think I had the most fun exploring a lot of that with Naomie's character, with Zoe. We kind of really got into it in those scenes. I think it shows on screen. And that's kind of the peak of everything that I like doing in this job, is getting to play those games, getting to like really play hardball with another actor and find things that surprise each other. And that's the opportunity that Stephen gives you with a character who's that determined. I wouldn't make the moral judgment on him, but he's certainly very, very determined.
Okay, and lastly, Michael, of course, the first time you worked with Steven Soderbergh was for Haywire. And so looking back, what's something that's changed about him as a director since then, and then something that's changed about you as an actor since then?
He doesn't drink Red Bull first thing in the morning anymore. I always remember that. I was like, wow, how can you drink that like first thing in the morning? So we're both we break our fast, intermittent fast, with boiled eggs, both of us. So it's a stinky room. Let me put it that way.
That is a trivia question in the making if I ever heard one.
Wow. I'm putting that in my arsenal.
And what is, I've changed.
Those intense expressions all the way through the dinner scenes? Yeah. Now you know.
Yeah. Trying to hold, keep it in the chamber. I've changed, I think, because, I have children now and being married. Before, back in that time, it was all about my work, and it was a very sort of singular sort of journey. So that's all changed now for sure.
Would you kill for me, George?
I want to talk about that first dinner scene. We learned so much about all of your characters in it. So for all of you, what was the most interesting part about performing that scene as actors? And then how was it shot? I know Soderbergh was operating the camera himself.
Yes, he was. That was the only scene that we rehearsed. And we only rehearsed it lightly so that he could, as we were speaking, move around and work out how he was going to shoot it. But then on the day, it got chopped into little parts. Yeah. So I, in a way, forgot where it was going to end up. So it became constantly surprising the deeper we got into the filming of it.
Dinner party scenes are usually like Groundhog Day. They just go on forever, and you lose track of your identity. And so to do one with a speedy director was fantastic.
Well, it definitely kept the audience on our toes. I really enjoyed it. Now, Kate, you have such an ease with Michael Fassbender on screen. So I'm curious, what was the most real thing about George and Catherine's relationship for you? And then how did Michael's performance enhance that or set the tone for you?
We shot a couple of endings for the film, and one of them was in the kitchen. I loved the fact that George cooked and the scenes where they were in the kitchen together, because you don't sort of see that sort of domesticity, with things with the the banality of life going on around them when this huge covert operation is going on and neither of them are discussing it. I found that really, the counterpoint of that, really beautiful.
And how about Michael's performance? Did he help kind of set the tone for that on-screen relationship?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we didn't discuss how we were going to play them or what drew them together, because there are so many things that in order for their relationship to function and last and thrive, they don't discuss these things either. So I found I was so drawn to the coiled spring that was in his performance of George, that sense of, he has a very steely exterior, but you feel a fragility internally, which I felt Catherine would be drawn to protect.
Now, Naomie, as the in-house counselor, you have a lot of one-on-one time with your fellow actors, but it was a standout performance between you and Cate. So what do you remember about shooting that scene, and how did you both keep each other on your toes?
What I remember was the fact that we did not rehearse at all.
We didn't even read the lines.
Not even reading the lines. It was literally like, just go as soon as we, sat in the chairs. And I loved that. It was terrifying though. Really, really scary, but it was a lot of fun. And also, I just remember always just how incredibly generous Cate is as a performer, as a human being, and also as a performer. So it was a real delight working with her.
Did it?
I love hearing that. Okay, now Tom, Soderbergh describes Freddie as someone who is self-destructive yet charming. So I wanted to know, what connections did you make between the types of relationships he's attracted to and why he chooses this line of work?
Well, he seemed all of a piece to me. It all made sense that he was in this line of work and he was the person he was, because I imagine there's an element of that could help in his job, as well as maybe making him a bit more of a wild card. But it was just the right ratio of feeling like I had a handle on who he was and being really intrigued to join the other dots up as we shot the thing.
Okay, now, Cate, I want to take you back to the first time that you worked with Steven Soderbergh, which was in The Good German. I think it was at 2006. So thinking back, what's something that's changed about him as a director since then? And then something that's changed about you as an actor since then?
I think he's just got deeper into the work process. I mean, he still had the production company with George then, and he's now a free agent. So he's actually making films and putting them together in a slightly different way. But he is one of the most indefatigably curious people I've ever met. He's always trying to go, I don't know how that works. How does that work? And he will use every film in a way is, in a best possible sense, is an experiment. But it's an experiment with an audience in mind. And so it's I think that sense of excitement of working with him's only got deeper. And I've worked with him in the theater as well, and so he will never say no to a good idea, and that thing hasn't changed about him.
That's exciting. And how about for you as an actress?
I am
changed about
older. For shiz.
Okay, now of course Pierce Brosnan is back in this role, the spy
Yes.
role, but his character is much different from James Bond. So what was your favorite part about seeing him play that difference for all of you guys?
He's such a beautiful, warm, generous person, so approachable, but he was so formidable in the few scenes I had with him. It was like, I've got to get hold my own in an elevator with Pierce Brosnan.
It was like they'd say action, and it was like the temperature in the room really dropped. It was palpable.
Now, just curious for all of you guys, what was the first Soderbergh film that you saw that made you think, I really want to be in one of his films?
Out of Sight, I think.
Behind the Candelabra.
Yeah, it was Sex, Lies and Videotapes, but then counterpoint that with Schizopolis. I go, wow, there's something really exciting going on there.
And then I probably know the answer to this question, but which cast member do you think would make for the best real-life spy?
Tom.
I was anticipating Michael to be your answer, but okay, Tom, we see you.
Tom or Regé.
Or Regé.
Yeah.
I think Regé.
I keep changing my mind as this afternoon goes on.
I think Regé.
Yeah, I do think Regé.
I think Reggae's got the kind of a really he's quite emotional in a great way.
Oh, interesting. I never thought of
I can tell when he's excited or upset or.
Yeah, that's true. He's too easy to read.
Was on the sofa.
Not much of a poker face.